Okay. Are you here?
How long you need? 2 minutes?
We're already live.
You already live?
Yes.
Okay then.
Young Gucci on the beat.
We're having technical problems. Okay.
Okay, we are live, and I'm really, really sorry for the time mix up. I first of all have to apologize because we said 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, and Femi, you're just telling me that the times have changed. So normally it should be 3 p.m. Eastern Standard, not 2 p.m., correct? So I want to apologize for those that were already waiting. And today we are live on the Pan African Daily, and I want to thank all of you that are connecting and joining the stream. We have a very, how do I want to say, a very difficult topic, as I want to put it. Something that we've been talking about for a long time now. And yeah. So the topic today is religion is the biggest challenge in Africa. So what is the way forward? Actually, I would reformulate it to say, but religion and Pan-Africanism. Religion and Pan-Africanism is a challenge. How do we merge the two to be able to build the Africa that we want? What are the challenges that we are facing right now? We see a lot going on that even if it is religion, there's a lot of fake churches, pastors, men of God, women of God. It's a lot of difficult things that are entangled with the topic religion. And I have with me a very open-minded speaker. Femi Akinbi is a consultant and a Pan-Africanist, a very big one. And when I called Femi today, because you're just coming from Africa, from the continent, in Nigeria particularly, and me too. And we have another guest that I'll be bringing on the show, an expert in this topic, also who would share his opinion because we're talking about one Africa. We're talking about the United Kingdoms or Queendoms of Africa. We're talking about the United States of Africa. We're talking about one Africa for Africans. And in as much as we from the Pan African Daily TV are actually really focused on the 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 building of the continent in an indigenous way, according to our culture, our traditions, our beliefs as Africans. Um, we understand that there's a difference. There has been a nuance from the studies that we know now that, the form of worship or the form of spirituality that we have on the continent actually is not in conformity to the African culture, to our values, to our norms, to a people that we are. So we find a mixture of different types of a concoction from Eurocentric religion or traditions that are also involved. So in the beginning we had the normal churches, and then the churches began to expand into something else, and the African spirituality is at stake. And that's why in this conversation we want to look from different perspectives. What is the issue? How can we blend this? I mean, I don't want to talk about even the Muslim religion and the Quran. So this influence of different beliefs and religious systems is what a lot of people are saying. The conflicts, the wars, the dividedness is also because of the religious beliefs that we have. Of course, if we look in Europe and we want to say Christianity came from Europe, you're going to see that it is actually their way of life and their tradition and the way they believe and who they worship and the images they look up to as a religious a figure or a church. But when we look at it in Africa, I mean, the misrepresentatives of all these images that actually, are portraying something else from what actually the African is, what the Black person is not really conforming. And this is bringing a lot of confusion, is bringing an open debate, like even the scriptures in the Bible. If God said, I made you in your image, and definitely, so I need to look at my mother and my father and see that image in them as Black people. But even the misrepresentative through images of God and then the Son of God being white, it's bringing a lot of confusion, and that's why the conversations are coming in this direction. What is the solution to us as Africans, and what is the way forward to bring this unism, this unity as one body with the different religious bodies or beliefs or worship systems that we have on the continent of Africa, because we cannot proclaim a one Africa agenda with different mindsets and different traditions and different belief systems, even the languages that we speak. So the topic today is really going to be a very intensive one, for those of you that actually, I don't know, we have to just be open up your spirit for us to learn, for us to study, for us to listen and hear from the experiences. So I want to get back to the studio and welcome my brother Femi, who is a consultant by profession, but a Pan-Africanist by spirit, just like any one of us. And Femi, you were on the continent when I spoke to you, and I asked, what is your African experience? I mean, you always been on the continent, but you're based in the US, as you would know. And the first thing that you told me was that the thing that I find that would be a problem in the future is religion. So over to you, Femi.
Thank you, and good evening to all the listening audience. I'd like to thank the sister for bringing us together again to discuss our brotherhood and our sisterhood. I think before, as we people could forge forward, we need to look back to where we're coming from, where we are, then where we need to go. Before we could even discuss this issue, I'm going to quickly put a disclaimer that the effort here is not to subjugate any religion or to put one on top of the other. It's just to express an African perspective on the issue. And having said that, we know that religion is one of the most mind control mechanisms known to mankind. One of the Soviet Union leaders said is the people's aphrodisia. And Africans are very, very religious people. But the few things we need to separate quickly. Is one, we need to separate religion from spirituality. Religion is a way of life, of how you do things. Your spirit is your contact with the rest of the cosmos. And nobody should actually come between it. That's one. So also, we should also be reminded that all the Africans globally are missing the difference between Christianity and Christendom. Christianity is a way of life, is the Jesus way and all the good stuff. But Christendom is when you use it to build an empire. And that's what the Roman Empire was all about. And that's why you still have the Vatican. It's a country by itself. Have its own flag, currency, ATM machine, police, and the armed forces. This is religion in the form of a kingdom. Having said that, I think what we are missing is the fact that the issue of religion was used and was masked to take over the African continent. That's where we need to visit what's going on here. We have to visit first of all was the Arabs who came in with the Muslim faith up from the northern part of the African continent. By the way, before we even could really get into this subject matter, if we really want to really get into it, is that we have to understand before all this outside religion came to the continent, we have went through about 400 years of slavery, where every other few months or year, a family have to pack up and run away to another safe haven, away from slave catchers. Because of all of this fragmentation, Africans then started to create small little communities, which is where all our dialects came from, mistrust of during slavery, and so on and so forth. It was around this time where we dwelled maybe 200-300 people in a village, and they call it their own little town. This is around the time we were at our weakest, because we were running from Peter to post. And at this junction was when they brought religion upon us. The Muslim faith came through the northern part of the continent. It was by force, by concubine, or by intermarriage. And they achieved their aim. And then the language and the culture was also introduced. As we're going through that, the Christian faith came through the other end of it, side of it, and brought in the Christian faith under duress. And under the pretense of trying to make us holy. Under the intent was what we had underneath us and the treasure of the African continent. But they masked it with religion, and I was able to use this faith of converting us into Christianity to get us. And this is the condition that we found ourselves. If we back away or back up a little bit also, most people who are of today I'm not, by the way, I was born a Christian. I do not blame anybody who is a Christian or any faith anyone chooses to believe in, but it's a belief system. There's no fact behind any religion, you just have to believe it. But having said that, on the issue of Christianity, for example, we realized that it was an African-based religion originally. Out of some part of Sudan, Ethiopia, Egypt, eventually got to the hands of the Europeans. And eventually there was a Roman warrior, I think his name was Constantine, if I get it right at this point. Please, if I'm wrong, somebody correct me. That was looking at the end of a war to find peace among all the people who are worshiping different gods. And all he wanted was a unified behavioral system. And that's how it took two northern Africans and some other member of his group to put the current day Bible we're using together. It was for a unified behavioral system. And then fast forward, we're using the King James third edition of the Bible today. If most people know who this guy was, they will never use that Bible again. He was a degenerate. He was so gay that he used to call him lady in his court. This is where the history of some of this religion came from. And then some of us do not understand that it was during the derogation of the Christian faith that when they start to give the certificate of sin to those who sin. So if you kill somebody, you pay 5,000 and we give you a certificate of sin. That is when two Ethiopian women decide to start the Muslim faith as we know it today. And if most of us understood some of the base of all this religion are all African-based, then we will not be killing one another over it. we will know that it's just a different way of our expressing ourselves to whatever God was presented to us during duress, and how we've managed to incorporate our own belief system and practice under this religious system. I think that's how we kind of got to where we are. Way forward now in the African continent has gone beyond just faith or belief. It's outright criminal what some of these people are doing to the people. There is a church, I think, from a Nigerian pastor in Kenya that is having a church called something breast. The woman cannot wear no bra to the church, and he's touching them physically, and this is part of the Holy Spirit. And the list go on and on of all the atrocity these people are committing. They will have 30, 40 security detail. That is their security carrying AK-47 and all kind of weapons possible allowed in the system. And then he would go and tell the congregation that God is going to protect them. This is the state we find ourselves in the country, that we are actually closing factory where we produce food and turn them to churches. We're spending more time in the place of worship than we're using in the place of producing what we need for our society. Something is wrong here. And any religion that is not of your mother's tongue is a foreign religion to you. I will not tell anybody what to practice and what not to practice. But if your religion is not in your mother's tongue, know that it was a foreign religion, and if you trace it, it was a false religion at the beginning.
Thank you, Femi. But even before we go to all those, what I want to put, there's something that is not adding up here. Africans are known to be very super intelligent people. Now, if I'm worshiping a god, and that God could be used for anything. You understand what I mean? Like the modern days, what we see, what the churches are doing today. And in the name of religion and in the name of God. I mean, Africans are not that dumb not to understand the difference. But what is it that pull people, masses of people, into this religious gathering?
Well,
what in your opinion do you think? Because like I said, let me just reframe again. Africans are not dumb. We know it. That's a fact. We are super intelligent. We can look at things and we say, no, this is not true. Oh no, I don't believe in this. I mean, I see the facts and everything. But what is it in this sector that people don't think? People just follow.
There's a lot of information gap. During the Christian era, I think there was about 300 to 500 years of information gap, where they make sure they wipe up all the information available to the common people, and then they gradually reintroduce new information. Secondly, poverty, what we call stomach infrastructure. When people are hungry and they're desperate, and we're operating out of a non-governmental environment that we call African countries, which are not really performing the service needed to the community and the society, then the society have to hold on to something. If it's not to turn criminal, then they have to find some faith of something to hold on to. And most people find that in religion. The traditional religion also in Africa is taking a bad hit in the sense that during slavery, they were ordered or structure in place to maintain the spiritual African science knowledge. But during slavery, they went scattered all over the places. So there was no longer structure to maintain the moral and the ethics of this group of people. And hence they went into different small factions of 200-300 people. Each went with whatever knowledge he or she left with. That does not help us now in trying to reassemble, because now we don't have no structure. Take, for example, now, if you are going to go to someone who is a Christian or a Muslim or a native African practice person, what they are all looking for, all of us, is what we're asking for, something that is beyond our own control. All of us are asking for that in prayer and whatever we do. So we know that it is how we express ourselves into this universe that all of us call religion, and this instrument we use is what is different. Having said that, the African continent, for example, now does not have a structure like a Bible or like a Quran that you could say, if I'm an African and I want to do African practice, how do I know that I didn't fall in the wrong hands of the wrong information flow? We don't have a booklet, something that we could say of an African religion, something to replace what the people are practicing. And so also we have to also understand that the Muslim faith in the African continent, the Yoruba language is imolili. That means faith by force. Not that you take it or your head is chopped off. And that's how some of this religion kind of came to the continent. And as in the strife that is going on in the continent, because I, for one, came from a polygamous family. And in my family, we have Muslims, we have Christians, and we have native African belief worshippers in our midst. And each and everybody just go about their business. Nobody has no question. Until recent time where the political elite started to use this religion as a game and as an instrument to win the election, to divide people and so on and so forth, then it has become a bigger problem in the continent. And once you stumble into this era of instability because of the issue of terrorism, kidnapping, etc., it's then have become a business for a certain group of people to have this thing continue so they can have budget every year for security. So we're in a big dilemma on the issue of religion in the continent. And I think the quicker our elders start to put head together and ask questions, the better we'll get to where we need to go. I think on the issue of religion, do I say this to you, any of us who's a Pan-Africanist, that you cannot worship the same God that your conqueror is worshiping. Somebody's going to have to win, and somebody have to lose. I think we had better go back to our own gods.
Thank you very much. Let me just go back and greet my audience and the community and the family. Family, you're all welcome. I know, I don't know, are you experiencing some challenges with connection out there? Because I keep seeing a blink here in the studio. Let me know if everything is okay, if this the stream is smooth and that you can hear us audibly. I want to thank all of you for joining, and the main seed of this family is always present. And once you're present, we can start the conversation. So we're just warming up, and our topic for today is on the continent. They just, people have been, I don't know what our guest is trying to explain in the name of lack of information, lack of education, but I think lack of self-development, lack of everything is because, I mean, no matter how desperate we keep saying poverty, I don't see really rich people out here that are more than some of the people on the continent. Most of these people that we're talking about are really educated, rich people that find themselves propagating this kind of business in the name of God, in the name of religion, or in the name of church. And to abuse even women. Today we see in churches in Africa where women are stripped naked, where women's body, private parts are being played with in the public church in the name of that is God or the spirit doing that. I mean, how can a continent this far, this intelligent, this knowledgeable would allow some of these kind of practices to go public? We've seen in African churches that pastors will walk upon people. It's only in Africa that we see that. We don't know in any church out here in the diaspora where pastors are walking on people, or they are carrying pastors, or pastors come and people lie down and they walk upon them, and everything is in broad light. The government is saying nothing about it. People they nothing about it. I mean, it's a whole kind of like, this is actually where Sodom and Gomorrah is. You look at the continent, neighbors, nobody cares what is happening. A lot of girls in the churches that thought that they were following God or following the religion, most of them have been abused, raped. A pastor is, just impregnating young girls in churches and abandoning them. We've seen a whole lot of things, and nobody is talking about it. No media would ever say it. People are applauding the men of God that are putting all type of loud posters and calling people to come for this and to believe, and they strip them naked. We just saw recently in a church in Nigeria where women actually are, twerking in public daylight and having sexual intercourse in the name of it's the Holy Spirit. We've seen even women that are pastors, who would, I mean, it's really despicable, because I know this is a family show and we watch it most of the time with our children, with our families together. So they are just some videos or some words that we actually cannot really just say it. But I mean, you understand what I'm trying to put out here. And all of us, it's not Pan-African Daily TV's concern. We have been talking. People have been talking. They've been complaining. So when we're talking about changing the narratives, and the whole world, particularly today on TikTok and stuff like that, and Facebook and social media platforms where people see Africa, do you think they just see only the beauty, the nature of Africa, the richness of Africa, without seeing all this other side of Africa? What kind of narrative are we trying to correct here with this topic?
Let me say this much though. I don't think all the other faiths, being the Christian faith, being the Muslim faith, are bad. I think it's the people who are using those faiths for their own personal or political gain that make it really bad. I think that where the continent is, that scares me is the amount of time we are spending in the place of worshiping compared to the amount of time we're spending in production environment. When we start to turn our food factory or whatever production environment we have to churches, then what are we doing to ourselves? There's nothing wrong to have faith in whatever anybody has faith in, but common sense will tell us that if you spend 8 hours inside the church, how many hours you have left in the day to do the rest of things you need to do for human assistance? So I think the other issues that we need to look at also is the commerce, because your religion is your culture. And whatever culture you are producing in any society is your economics. Take, for example, how many billions of dollars have been used from Nigeria and the rest of the African continent to go to Mecca and to go to Rome for pilgrimage. And how many of those people come back to spend their hard-earned money with us? When we travel there, we use their airline because we don't have none of our own. We use their hotels. We go shopping there. We buy wholly related items of gifts to bring back home. And then we bring some part of the culture back with us. Nobody is doing that in return to us. How many of the Europeans are taking a religion pilgrimage to Africa? Do you know how much money we spend on that year in and year out? That's economics. And the area of culture is once we start to bring other people's culture back to ourselves, that's what we're going to be buying. And then that becomes our business. Then we now have left our own original business behind and now start to help other people's business. That's what will happen when you leave your culture behind. And these are the issues I think the African continent needs to start to grapple with, in the sense that all our finance in that arena is one flow out and nothing is coming back to us. What do we do to make sure that our culture is practiced at the minimum by all the Africans globally, the ones in Brazil, Caribbean islands, and so on and so forth, so that we can also develop an institution of our own?
We're talking about brain damage. We're talking about the narratives. We're talking about the education. We're talking about a place where people gather in thousands to be educated about freedom. That is what the church, or the origin of religion, it's a gathering. It's not even a place. It's not even a house. It's a gathering of people of common interest, which proclaims the gospel, right? The gospel to the needs of the people. And then it became helping people. It became solving people. It became healing people through the word. All right. These are not meeting the target of what it used to be. Even in the Orthodox churches, or in the traditional churches like the Presbyterian churches, the Catholic churches, and everything like that, little is not sin in like the Pentecostal churches or the other churches might seem to be. We are talking about a particular group that is literally called today like a sect, as a matter of fact. And it goes on. It is not just about a people, but it's about the masses of people that are being derailed. So no matter what we say, or it's a politicians, young people, women, children, it's a whole cult that is affecting 30% of the continent. That is huge. That is still huge. Now we waste, let me know, so we waste our time with our educational systems where people go to school and learn how to be able to use education to interpret a daily life situation. Now, I still come back to the question to ask you, like you're saying, no, I'm not being about, it's not a problem of whether we are about a religion or that. A religion is a way of life. But we are saying this kind of toxic churches that are growing up in the name of religion to do this kind of work, how are we going to build a healthy community of people, of Africans, whether at home and abroad, with this kind of mindset?
I think what we have to resort to is basically go to the village, really. The bottom line is that the top-down approach is going to be a hard pill to swallow. The thing we need to probably do is go back to the youth in the village and start to teach them the African ways. Most people are not aware of the depth of our knowledge in the secret science. If you look at, say, the Yoruba, we use Ifa, which is a 0 and a 1, and 256 chapters. That's what the computer system is running on. Our ancestors did that thousands of years ago. These are the things that we are not. Language is the depth as how a person could express themselves. Once your language is taken, you are expressing yourself foreignly, in the sense that in the African continent as it stands now, we are not using any African language. By the way, while we are at this, so to some of us who can understand the depth of some of this subject, as we speak currently at the UN, there's not a single African language that is translated, not one single language at the whole of the UN, as of this year, last time I checked. Having said that, and the African continent, we're not serious about our culture. If we're serious about our culture, we'll have changed the language or have one universal African language as at this point. We're still talking about it. It hasn't quite happened after 60 years of our freedom. That's an issue we have to contend with, that everything we're doing is we're using foreign language to teach our children. How are you going to use foreign language to teach your local culture when the expression is in the local culture? Take, for example, in Nigeria now, most families just speak English only. They don't speak the local dialect or the language of the local. And this is seen as being advanced or being sophisticated, but nobody's living their own language and can learn our language. So all of these things should be looked into regarding these religious issues in the continent.
I would ask you, let me just bring another perspective. I'll be bringing an expert who happened to be a theologian, so that we're looking for solutions. We are not talking about individuals here with their faith. I want to make this discrimination for the audience. We're talking about a system that we know that is eating up the community in Africa, not even only in Africa, even in the diaspora. And this system is not different from the corrupt system, as if they work together to foster these kind of things. And we see evil in broad daylight, as we were saying. I mean, this is not something of a personal fate with somebody. We're talking about a system is put in place, and we see it operative in daylight, extorting money from Christians in the name of faith, in the name of selling them faith, and riding private jets and whatever jet life, and their communities are impoverished, and they I mean, in total misery. Why we don't see that out here is because people have a standard of living, and people have even walked away from the church long time ago. And the churches, particularly in Europe, is mostly like a museum where people just visit and say, in those days it used to be, because people have transformed the word of God into their heart, into love, and they begin to emphasize it and they practice it.
I think one thing that is very dangerous about some of these pastors is when they talk, they say, God said. So now they become God. And we are allowing that stupidness. But I think the government system in the African continent should look into this. Most people who does not know the history of Tokyo, Tokyo was not originally named Tokyo. Tokyo became Tokyo when one of the new emperor took in all the religion heads and killed all of them. That's how the name got to become Tokyo. That's his name. And to today, Japan does not practice that many religion publicly, and they are among the highest producing industrial state in the world as we speak.
When President Kagame said, if you are not a theologian, you've not studied theology, you're not opening any church here. What about that? Because all these so-called men of God that are inspired and everybody can preach, anybody can quote a quotation, and all their Bible quotation are always in to bring down the people, to put you in a state of which you are, as if you're captured, so that they can extort a lot out of you. What about the system in Rwanda?
The thing is that when people are poor and desperate, they're looking for some kind of salvation, something to help them. And then they become very useful for these pastors who are doing all this. There are some good pastors out there, but some of these guys are making the churches look bad. By the way, it's not just in the churches. In some of the mosques, in some of the African traditional practices. What I'm saying is that there are different levels of us out here. Let's harness the good and just make sure that we allow people to practice whatever religion they want to practice, but with enough education, local education, for them to make their mind up.
Wonderful. I'll just bring in a guest unannounced, and we're going to be looking for solutions to this. And people, you that are joining me, I want to thank you for contributing actually to this topic. This is one of a big topic that I think it's very relevant for us to start addressing it, because we fumble around all the time, and at the time I keep asking myself, or we should keep asking ourselves, what actually is the system that we want Africa to develop in? I think that will be the next question. It's not just only because if we're talking about one Africa, one people, one unity, one system of governance, then there must be one religion, there must be one belief, one tradition. When I say one, of course, we're going to get, sorry, Femi, we're going to get different sectors. Like even in the whole world, you have a whole system, but it's a traditional system, and every other little things really just be like small corporate partners that form, but the top or the hierarchy is the one that is deciding. And that's why you're talking about the Eurocentric culture of way of belief or religion. That is the major central point. And even all the small petty ones are breaking up, but they have already a central authority of it. Now, what does Africa has to offer. So I bring live or on the show Mr. Fongot Stanley, who is a child that is born and raised in the church from religious parents. He's also a theologian and also a pastor. We want to actually get into this topic because it is one, whether it's faith or what, we are coming together. Now, if Pan-Africanism is not involved in the system, so probably Pan-Africanism, as we say, is a belief, is a religion system for Africa. What are we going to do with the 60% that are already into these other sectors? Welcome to the show, Mr. Stanley Fongot. Thank you so very much for being our guest here tonight. And I hope you are actually going to help us to answer some of these questions, or first of all, define where you think the problem is coming from, and what is the way forward, or what is actually the situation.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And so let me first of all have this disclaimer out there. You know, being a theologian, that's huge, and it's quite huge. But I think that the conversations, and also I've been enjoying and loving Mr. Femi.
Can't hear.
Oh, you can hear me? Can you hear me now?
No, we
Is
can't
it
hear
better?
you.
Oh,
Can you hear?
I can hear you guys very well.
No, we can't hear you well though.
Oh, you can hear me, but I can hear you guys. I don't know what's going on. Uh, I think you need to probably unmute me.
Is somebody hearing outside there? Because I hear you,
You,
Stanley.
you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I do. I don't know whether the audience is hearing you. Can you hear
Uh,
us, audience? Can you hear Mr. Fongot right here? Or
hello,
Reverend Pastor
can no,
Fongot?
Stanley Fongard, I beg.
It's okay. I mean, we,
I
yes,
beg you. So can you guys hear me?
you,
Let me try this and
I
then
just don't know
unmute
whether it's the
myself.
connection or what.
I don't know. It's
Can
You may have to go
you
into the
hear?
bottom.
um
We hear. Cheryl is saying we hear.
okay, you guys, but can they hear me? Ask them if they
Yes,
can hear me.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
They can hear me, right? So they said they can hear
yes.
me.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
good. All right. So I was trying to say to Mr. Femi that I'm quite excited about some of the things that he was saying, and so
Who said we can't hear here?
oh, you still can get me,
Okay,
Mr.
Femi,
Femi.
wait. I know what I will do. Wait a
Okay.
minute.
Is that better? Is it better now? Is it good?
Femi, can you hear?
Can
The
he
audience can hear. I think, Femi, you need to check your.
his
They
connection?
can hear him on YouTube, of course.
Okay. So what I was trying to say is that, quite excited with what Mr. Femi was talking about. And I think that we have come into a place where we have to fully, really understand exactly what it is that we are pushing for. And for us to understand this, we need to get into a place where we understand, first of all, the whole entire concept of spirituality and religion. And I think that, for us to be able to understand that, we need to go back. We need to go back to the very foundation of what belief is. And also the building blocks for any single religion. I think that I'm sure everyone you can hear me, right? Is it good?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm quite, the thing is this: if we start talking about being able to or ask the question we are asking, what is happening to the African? Why is it that Black Africa seems to have this much appetite for Christianity? The reason is because Black Africans by nature are extremely religious, whether we like that or not. If you have looked at most of the literature that came out of a place like Spain, all right, back earlier on within the 16th and the 17th century, most of this information was based on the fact that most Africans were enslaved more than the Moors. Think about this way: you have Europeans who came out of Europe, they have to come through North Africa and then to come to the southern part of Africa to get slaves. and it was quite easy for them to get the Moors, those living in North Africa, to be slaves. But most of those guys in North Africa were least likely to convert into Christianity and also more likely to escape. The guys in the South, unfortunately, these are historical facts, by the slavers themselves, the guys in the South, the blacks in the South, were more likely to convert to Christianity and less likely to escape from their slave masters, because once you have been indoctrinated by a particular belief system, you have that consciousness within you that, you know what, I am going to obey whatever my masters are saying. But here are the fundamental blocks. Here are the fundamental building blocks for any belief. First of all, any religion will have to be able to have these core structures, whether no matter how small in scale the religion is, you have to have these belief structures for it to actually have any kind of meaning before you can have a people, you know, en masse in terms of keeping them within a particular structure. So think about it this way. Day one, all right, when humanity began living in smaller communities, you have someone who basically within that particular framework, the night became a time of terror. And the reason is because they really didn't have those kind of structures to be able to guide them, especially when it came to the societies in which they were living in then. So they lived in caves and they hunted during the day and they will run into the caves at night. So the night became a place of terror for most people. Meanwhile, the cave, all right, became a place of safety. And this was during the night. During the day, they will go out and hunt. But at night, then they will have to retrieve into the cave and then hide, because we had predators, okay, out there like hyenas, lions, and whatever was out there that was actually hunting them. And so they'll have to go and hide in caves, okay, during the night to run away from the dark. And so darkness became quite terrifying to the psyche of the human. Meanwhile, light or daylight became a source of liberation. So they were afraid of the dark, but yet they embraced the light. So the one unique concept that flourishes across different civilizations in relationship to culture is the fact that the night is a place of terror, or what is dark is a place of terror. But during the day, all right, it's a place of freedom. So we run away from the dark, we go towards the light. And that's the whole entire premise for the light. Whenever somebody is caught up from the light and taken into the darkness, there has to be somebody who can go into the darkness to liberate whoever is in the darkness and bring that particular individual back into the light. The person who has the capacity to go into the dark and bring that person back into the light, all right, maybe a lion captures somebody, or, you know, got a couple of sheep and then drag them back into a hiding place, which in this context of probably call it the abyss. And then if somebody had the capacity to go out there, somebody who is strong, somebody who is powerful, somebody who is like a devil who says, I'm going to do it. If that person got there and was able to deliver that person out of darkness and brought them into the light, in that society, in that context, he was called a hero. All right, so that's where a hero was coming from. If you look at all the construct of all major religions, we have somebody who basically becomes a hero, who has the capacity to go out into the dark, all right, and bring somebody out into the light. And I think that one of the most beautiful thing, especially when it comes to, what we can actually start with, trying to be able to help the African understand the context of who we are, is that Christianity is really, and I thank Brother Femi for basically saying this, Christianity really is not a European thing. If you look at Christianity at its roots, at its core, it's actually quite African in nature. I mean, pretty much almost every single thing else that the Bible has to offer is quite African in nature. And so because you really, really have to start questioning, a lot. There's a lot of other texts out there. You have to look at the Bible. If you look at the Bible, you look at even the Quran. If you look at the Epic of Gilgamesh, if you look at books like the Atrasis Epic, if you look at Eridua Genesis, these are all books that gives us a little bit more into the insight of religion. It gives us a little bit more concept into the formation of most of our biblical stories. You can read about the stories of Noah, okay, and you can see this in the Sumerian text, okay, which is way older than the Christian text. So there's a lot more going on outside of the framework of Christianity, okay, because most of these ancient texts are way older than, known dates in relationship to the Christian stories, which only, tells us one thing, that somebody actually pressurized another individual. So those who are older, all right, obviously influence the newer text, and the scriptures by themselves is extremely quite new when you start comparing texts like, the Sumerian text. Those are way older. We're talking about 20 centuries BC. All right, so it's way older than text does like 6 centuries BC, and then to talk about other texts like the Islamic text, which is just about 6th century, AD. All right, or whatever stuff you want to call it now. But the idea is, if we're looking at us in relationship to what we can be able to do so far as the African is concerned, I think that we have to first of all approach the whole entire concept of Christianity, not so much as to what is wrong with Christianity. All right, because the reality is that if you look at the core text in itself, it really does not, there's nothing about it that is wrong. And I think Mr. Femi said something brilliant, is that we have a lot of folks who are practicing this that are really killing, all right, or destroying the core tenets of whatever the Christian text is. All right, we have very bad practitioners, people who are practicing the faith. Those are the people that are making this looks really bad. And unfortunately, I think that if we start looking at it from an Afrocentric perspective in relationship to who we are, then you'll soon realize that we have to now change our perception, okay, and our perspective actually on how we approach Christianity, no longer within a more hierarchical structure like the one we have right now. Because the foundation for actually the text alone, you have to ask yourself this one question, that the Bible, 66 books written over a span of 1,500 years, and yet a bunch of guys, all right, with Constantine leading the whole entire chart, decided that they're going to pick 66 books only. All right, and those 66 books, you think that it's actually divinely inspired to be put together. There's nothing like that. The reason why I say so is because the 66 books references 22 other books that is not part of the 66. Right? So you have a textbook that is telling you that all the chapters in this textbook is referencing 22 other chapters that are not included as part of the book itself. So you soon realize that, so there's nothing sacred, there's really nothing holy, there is nothing spiritual about the Bible itself. The Bible is not some divinely inspired word. Bible is just a book, okay? It's from the city Biblos, where papyrus sheet, when they started stitching papyrus sheet together, okay, to create a book. So we have the Bible, which is a combination of books. That's it. There's nothing so special about it. And I think that if we fully understand this, then it will shift our minds, and will shift the minds of the people from, because right now, talking to an African who is in church, who believes that Jesus speaks to the man of God, and then you now start telling them that this is what we need to do, okay, which is a divergent to what their core belief structure is, you're in trouble. All right, they will come out swinging. I mean, they will fight you because they believe that you're coming at something that is so secret. The idea is this: you have to be able, I think we have to be able to present Christianity, present Christ, present religion, or whether it be Islam or Christianity, which are the two most dominant, on the continent. We have to present that in its truest form. And its truest form, so far as I'm concerned, is to look at first century Christianity outside of the influence of Europe. We have to look at North Africa for its truest form. If not, then what will happen is we'll be trying to discredit Christianity with those who are looking at Eurocentric Christianity, and then trying to fit the African within the context of what is coming from Europe, not knowing that the reality is what was originally within the 1st and 2nd century was never anything that Europeans, basically shipped to us on the continent. We had something totally different. I think that's my take on that.
Oh, Ooh. This is too deep. I think really. One question. You said something that I picked up. That you said the book is not complete. That's a fact that everybody knows. It is 66 and minus 22 books that are absent.
What?
Okay.
What?
But in that book we have 10 commandments. And in the Kemetic spirituality, we have the 42 laws of Ma'at. What is the difference?
Okay, well, see, first of all, here's a correction. The 66 books is what they put together, right? Now, all I'm saying is this, that none of us knows precisely how many books are supposed to actually be as part of the Christian text. Just because those individual actually put in 66 books does not mean that those are the number of books that are supposed to be there. The reason why those 66 books were placed was actually political, emotional, thought, ideas, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So those 66 books were not placed by the original writers of the book. So it's okay. For example, if someone who was inspired to write the text basically came and said, I was inspired to write this text, and then I was also inspired to say that you are part of, you know, I'm going to collaborate with you to bring my own work, and then you bring your own work, and then we put our works together to create the 66, then that will make sense. But we are talking about 1,500 years later, when you have a group of guys inspired by a particular belief system, by a structure, by a government, by a man who is in power, who has authority, who is thinking more about how to be able to create a narrative, a framework that will give him what he's looking for within the worldview that he's trying to push across the region that he has dominant control over. The idea here is this: if we are talking about 66, all I'm saying to you is this: 66 is an arbitrary number. It doesn't really mean anything. 66, it could have been 24, it could have been 100 and something. The question here is this: it's not as to how many books were left out. The question to me is why some of the books were left out. And the reason why I'm raising that is because within the 66, let's take the 66, let's define the 66. Within the 66, there are 22 citations within the 66 that is not part of the 66. Yes, I'm saying. So when you read a book and you see a citation, maybe an index citation, and then you're able to say, okay, well, you know, as this reference in this particular book, you can go back and, you know, but if the book was complete, then there will be no reason for the book to be able to reference a book outside of the book. It would have been a book within the book. But if you're referencing something outside of the book, then that basically means that whatever we are calling complete is absolutely not complete. And so that, you know, basically keeps us in a quandary where we are asking yourself, you know, what do we believe and what don't we believe? I mean, so how can you be trying to tell me about a complete belief structure when the book that you're using to define the context of my belief, all right, absolutely is not complete by the book itself telling me it's not complete. It's the Bible that told me that the Bible is not complete. I'm not the one who said it. The Bible is telling me that 22 books are missing out of there. If I have to believe whatever Constantine and his folks put together, then I will also say that, well, Constantine, give me 22 more other books. Why are you hiding those books as part of the Christian text? That's the first question we need to answer. While you're talking about the 42 laws of Ahmad, I think that honestly, the beauty about the 42 laws of Ahmad is this, and this is in stark difference within the Christian text. I've always believed that every civilization has influenced another civilization. I've always believed that. The Kemetic civilizations influenced the Greco-Roman civilizations. The Greco-Roman civilizations has influenced the Western civilization. It's just the way it is. If you look, there are a lot of elements within the Greco-Roman civilizations that is Kemetic in nature. And so it's the West. The idea here is this, that if you look at the 42 laws of Ahmad, I believe that there must have been an influence on Moses, okay, in Egypt, because obviously speaking, if you follow the Christian text, he lived in Egypt. There must have been an influence of Moses in Egypt for the 10 commandments, as I said. The first 2 laws of Ahmad is amazing. In the 10 commandments, it says, thou shalt not kill. The 42 laws of Ahmad, basically, it doesn't say thou shalt not kill. It says, I have not killed.
Absolute.
It is an affirmation rather than a commandment. So it is you speaking to, you're basically speaking to your tomorrow. It's quite prophetic. It's basically says, I have not done this. So you are basically saying, this is what I have not done. It is not somebody basically saying to you, you shall not. So the point of reference in relationship to authority is not outside of thyself, it is within thyself. So the expression, thou shalt know thyself, which is schematic in nature. Know thyself. All right, I know me, I know myself. I think the Christian text in the book of Luke basically paints a picture. It says that eternity in their hearts. It speaks of the fact that eternity is within us. And then if eternity is within us, then the cosmos, everything that there is actually within us. We are one with nature. And the 42 laws of Hamas basically also talks about nature, because there is absolutely no way you can be able to clearly, there used to be scientifically, we used to actually believe that something existed as a vacuum. No more. Nothing exists as a vacuum. Because if there's anything that existed as a vacuum, which basically means that there's nothing, then we probably will not be able to have any kind of transmission through a vacuum, but we do. Okay, so now we've fully understand within, the subatomic levels that there's nothing that actually exists as a vacuum. So the notion for that is when eternity is in our hearts, we are one with the cosmos. We are one with everything that there is. We're just an expression in moment in time. And so to fully awake the consciousness of the African, I think that we have to approach this from that perspective, whether it be with Islam, whether it be with Christianity, whether it be with the Yorubas, I think the Orishas, of the Yoruba. I've always been fascinated, and maybe later on, Femi will probably educate me on it. I've been fascinated with the Yorubas, the Orishas. And the reason for that is because, we have this whole entire stuff, 1 + 1 is equals to 2, right? It's a lie. It depends. It's 1 + 1. It depends on where you are. 1 + 1, we now understand, especially, with something like Boolean algebra, 1 + 1 is not 2. All right. And that is the basis of electronics. And so with that consciousness, with that mindset alone, it's that Yoruba thinking. I think it's the Ondua mathematics or something like that, Odoro or something like that, mathematics in the Yoruba, where it's that mindset that has given us the capacity where 1 + 1 is not equals to 1, that me and you're communicating right now. Electronics, communication, right? It's a different concept. It's a different way of thinking, but it's quite amazing that the basis for all electronic models was given to the Yoruba people, probably thousands of years before a microchip. That's fascinating.
I want to bring Femi. Femi, can you hear us?
I can hear you, but I could never hear Mr. Stanley on this end at all.
Oh, this is. Anyways, I don't know why it's acting, because I hear you, I hear him, and the audience hears him. Yeah, all right. So, but Stanley, when he speaks, you hear him.
Oh yeah, perfect. Well.
All right. So it ties. He was actually just trying to break the different, to say, even before we go deeper into why the situation with the religion is like, we have to know the origins, and that is not what is being taught in the church or to the African or to any person to know. We just are confronted with just what we have on the plate. And he was trying to give the origin and came back to the situation where you said, if any religion that is not spoken in your mother tongue, or if the God is not in your mother tongue, then that is foreign. And he's coming like to the Yoruba culture and the Yoruba religion, where we think most of the Kemetic words also, or the laws or the practice and the traditions actually have their basis. We know that, but those are things that we'll get into for those that are interested actually to get into that. Even these topics, there's some topics that is not really for everybody. There are some topics that are actually just for particular individuals of people. It's not everything that is general. So the question is, what does this help us what does religion help us as a people together? And then Stanley was talking about the orishas. Can you just explain to us the foundation or the traditional beliefs of the Yoruba people? On the orishas is what you said.
Orisha.
Orisha.
Orisha. That's
Orisha.
your head, your creation.
Mm-hmm.
The Yoruba religious system is an old practice. I do not know how quick I can explain it here, but it's based on some of our ancestors studying nature. It's all nature based. And all the verses and chapters in it cover individual different aspects of our human existence. I think the best way I can put it is our way of life, is our way of predicting the future, the present. Where do we go from here? We are not going to a third party, we go to source, which is Orumila, which we believe is the God of creation. We have interseer, we have messengers, we have Ishu, we have Shango, we have Oya. Each of those are deities. They're not God, but they are deities that we use to want to practice to be like them in real life, because they're deities. They stood for something. So the Yoruba religious system is a little bit, I would say it's a bit advanced. And to those who could break it down properly, it covers all the space of our life. And that's why I think people like the rest of us who are brought up as Christian need to go and read, because it's not just religious, it's actually very scientific. If you take, for example, the 0 and 1 is the base of the computer bionetics. You have 250 chapters and so on and so forth. So we know that this is not just a random number picked. But for the most part, your religion is your economics. If you do not practice your own culture, then you have no economics to practice. You practice somebody else's economics. And then once you lose your economics, you have nothing for your politics to manage. So we need to go back to understand that our religion practices is a base of our economical system. And our economical system is just being governed by our political system. If we lose the culture, lose the language, lose the religion, then we have no business to manage. Then our politics is just going to be useless. So those are the areas of where we need to look at it from a bigger picture. Individual religious belief system. Everybody practice what they fit, but based upon the information based where they are coming from. The Yoruba system is governed by a set of principles, governed by nature. And then the part of human that is there are deities, and they just use as an example of what we could be in the future. I can go into a little bit to the depth of it, but I try my best this time not to want to pick one religion against the other this time. We just generally want to kind of say, why is it that our religion practices are not helping us? If your religion is not a liberator, it's not your religion. If your religion is not speaking about the consequence of what you are dealing with, or the pain you are dealing with, how to resolve it, then it's not a religion for you to practice. And then as far as the religion practices in the continent is concerned, we do not have to have one unified system. The African religious system is based upon a few pillars of fairness, universal sharing, the list goes on and on. It's basic. It's just the branches that are different. In Africa, you go to your neighbors when you need something. It's part of our belief system that if you have abundance, you share. And the list goes on and on. So those are the things I think we need to hold on to, our major universal umbrellas, and let other branches kind of grow from it. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear Mr. Stanley, so I could respond some of his thoughts, but at least you could hear me, so you could probably at least respond to the audience so they can have a three-way conversation.
It's okay when we do with the production, then all of you will be able to hear one. I want to bring another very important aspect. We're talking about spirituality.
The what
There's
now?
one thing that this spirituality, There's one thing that you said, and I think it's very accurate. Stanley also touched that point when we talk about spirituality, and you talk about language playing a very unique role. And we see that the Christian religion is brought in English language, and then was being translated into the different, even in our local languages, in Mungaka, in Meta, when the missionaries came, they begin then to translate the Bible into these different languages. But the origin, so the language itself already shows that it is not our culture. Because why I'm saying it, because when we talk about spirit and ritual, that is spirituality. And we split the word spirituality into two. So we have the spirit, which for an African, like what Stanley was saying, is an inner soul, an inner action that is connected to nature. But the ritual is the practice of what we do. It's a simple English language. Ritual is the occurrence of us doing different things. Now, if you look in an African context, when we talk about rituals in the church, for instance, just that, like that is enough. How does an African understand the word ritual? Positive or negative? Let me just simplify it.
Since slavery and since spiritual or religion has been used as a way to conquer people, the part of the training of the Europeans or those who came to colonize the African continent on both sides of the religious system is that, one, they make sure they bastardize our belief system and synthesize theirs. So from that point on, everything that is about us is deemed negative. And if we assimilate this long enough, it becomes part of our belief system. If you punish or if you put a hardship on any group of people long enough, they'll start to practice it themselves. I think there was an experiment by, I think it was Stalin, that broke all the wings of a chicken and just give some corns, and the chicken kept following it. If you get people in the state of duress, of desperation, of survival, they will do anything to assist. So that part of it, we need to take a look at it. The financial aspect is mind-boggling to me how much we still spend on our outflow to other places, and nobody's influencing with us. It's impossible for an African who is using nature and he or her language to incantate nature, calling to the power of the universe to make something happen for him or her. It cannot be done in English. And then a lot of Africans do not also comprehend most of the European practices are our practices. They look at the coronation of the king of Prince Charles of London, this guy from London and all of that. And at the end, they go kill a ram. They take chicken over the Jew's head and run it 7 times before they kill the chicken. In the African continent, our mind is so close. Anything that is now close to where we originate from is a no-no. Our mind is close to that. What I'm saying to the rest of the African continent is that it's time for us to start to be open-minded and to use our mind anytime we engage in any religious practices.
Thank you. I'll come back to Stanley on that. I mean, what I was saying in this spirituality factor.
Oh, the ritual part.
Like we say, we have the two words, the spirit and the ritual. For us in African spirituality, I understand African spirituality. I take an example. Beating of the drum. Beating of the drum is a ritual that connects the spirit. So beating of the drum is the action that I do to invoke, to connect the communication between my spirit and nature and my ancestors. So that's what I call African spirituality. dancing, tapping my feet and connecting nature to myself is a ritual. The spirit action of what I do is an African spirituality. So, but
So
for
the
me,
same thing
for
as
me,
you
it's
go and you
difficult
beat
to
your
understand.
drums,
Yes.
the same thing some other belief system go to their place of worship and they have a bell and they just go, bingo. The Buddhists have their own. I think all of us are looking for different vibrational level to access the metaphysical level we cannot access, that we does not assist it. And different practice get to it. For what most of people understand in the metaphysical realm, that quietness bring and nature bring you closer to spirit. And the more you live in the city, the more you say the noise clear away those energy fields. Um, the issue of this ritual also, there's a lot of negative aspect of it we also need to talk about in the continent. Because now we have instances where young people, even young people, are doing human sacrifice in the continent. They're doing blood sacrifice. That's not our African spiritual system. That's negative spiritual system. We need to speak about that to know that in the light of no guidance and no blueprint, a template to guide our spiritual system that went into havoc during slavery, we've never been able to reassemble them properly. And out of this comes some of these negative people who are using them negative.
Good. Those are details of the other kind of things. We're talking about the global African spirituality system and the act of religion that is actually interfering. We're never going to get a system that is perfect or without what people do today. Those are aspects of it. But today the topic is religion is the biggest challenge on our continent, because first, it never was our way of life. It was brought to us, and now we find the different patterns playing a role. If really African spirituality doesn't have different models. If they play a drum by the, I'm sorry, hang on. If an African in the Caribbean is playing his drum and dancing, the African music is the same like the African in Yoruba on the continent, or in Nigeria, or even in North Africa, is the same action. And that is an aspect of an African spirituality in my culture, in my tradition, in my belief. But if a church comes that has different variations under one name, I find it a problem. Doesn't fit. Stanley.
This is kind of quite deep. You know, spirituality and which is basically spirit and rituals. I think that of course we have had a lot of rituals on the continent, and one of the things which I think that we can be able to at least, harness, is the fact that we can now be able to look at what's happening with Judaism, and which is still practiced today, and then basically says, wait a minute, what is going on? We can look at the fact that England, to which it is that most of our cultures actually came out of within the Christian church, and see how they're sacrificing a goat or a ram during, the coronation, of their king, and then ask ourselves, the Christian, what is going on? So I think that, the question no longer is the fact whether we should be able to participate in rituals. Of course, when I talk about rituals, I'm not talking about money rituals and all of those stupidity of the African continent, but we are talking here about, genuine rituals that is based upon, who we are in relationship to our ancestry. So I believe sincerely that we need to be able to start having those conversations, because if not, then we would have to start explaining what the Jews are doing. We have to basically start explaining what's going on in Europe, since we are looking at the West, and we are looking at Europe to have become, a place that is quite more advanced, and that's what we should be following. Meanwhile, those of us who are on the African continent with our own, religious beliefs and platforms, can no longer practice. So I think that, you have a point there in basically raising that question between spirituality or between spirit and rituals, that we need to be able to have, those two marry beautifully, in the psyche of the African. By the way, I think that there's something if you permit me, I'll probably like to say. I think that we really need to. There's a story in the biblical text which is the Tower of Babel. Right, the biblical text has this story, this whole entire stuff about the Tower of Babel, and I think that it's actually reminiscent of where we are in history. And also as Africans, it speaks of the fact that men, the text begins by saying men came from the east and they settled in a valley in the plain called Shinar. And while they were in that valley called Shinar, they decided to construct a tower, and that tower was called the Tower of Babel, right? Then it was called the Tower of Babel. And then from there, they got scattered. I think that the beauty of that particular text is missed in the multitude of us just trying to have some kind of religious, mindset to it. The beautiful thing there is the fact that it says they came from the east. And I think that the east is reminiscence, or it's actually a way of basically speaking of the morning. The sun rises from the east and then settles in the west. They came to a place called Shinar, which basically means that they came, they had literally not advanced in civilization to where that they were supposed to be. They came into this particular environment. The scripture says that they were with one voice. They had one language, which was extremely quite troubling. And the reason for that is because it is in diversity that we find unity. It is in the multitude of ideas that we find a more coherent idea that can push any civilization forward. So the idea that we are all, basically kowtowing to one particular, idea is a little bit quite troubling. We need to have multitudes of folks basically pouring in themselves, and then we find which one is the best idea, to take us to where we're supposed to go. And I think that, Tower becomes a place where, we are stuck with one language. We are stuck with one idea. We are stuck with one belief system. We are stuck up with a particular narrative that has absolutely nothing. And then with this esoteric mindset that we want to basically build up a structure to reach the cosmos. But meanwhile, it is not reaching the cosmos that is as important as us developing where we are as a people to find us and build structures within our own communities that is extremely meaningful. No wonder the scriptures comes up by saying, to the very few verses after that, it says that the grand designer, the great watchmaker of the universe, decided to come and then split them by giving them confusion in terms of their language. To me, it was not confusion. To me, it was what? It was giving people a different mindset to be able to speak the language that basically pushed them to do the things that they had to do within the environments that they had to do it in. Language is actually culture. It is, and that's the more reason why you don't expect me to, and I think Femi was saying that, you don't expect me to be in worship, outside of the framework of my language, because my language is my culture. All right. When I wake up in the morning, I'm not thinking tea. When I wake up in the morning, I'm taking fufu. All right. When I wake up in the morning, it is not bread and tea. It is fufu corn. Okay. I mean, right now we can start doing that now, but that's not who we are as a people. And the reason for that is because every food I eat, when I eat it, has something to do with my people and my culture. Okay, we ate certain things in certain seasons, and that had everything to do with us as a people. It is the confusion of languages that gives us this unique identity, that it is now us coming together with the perfection of our own individual cultures on the African continent that paints this beautiful mosaic, that when you look at the whole entire picture, it's a beautiful tapestry, okay, with so many beautiful colors that gives us this unique blend and makes us stand out. And we need everyone to show up, on the scene with their backgrounds, with their cultures. And that's why I think African spirituality actually makes sense. You know, when I allow you to be you in context of where you're from, and you allow me to be me in context where I'm coming from, and then by the time we all come together, then everything just beautifully blend, and you'll have such an amazing picture, because we have now come with our own individual ideas, backgrounds, and culture to paint a picture that is so good that you by yourself with your own individuality could not be able to do, but together we blend so beautifully.
Wonderful. I mean, this I totally agree. Like, yes, 400, 500 years it has been Christianity. It is time African spirituality as we go back. If we're talking about diversity, Femi was talking about, I have to bring Femi back, because that's Femi, don't go. The concept of our religion is our economic. Right. Our religion is our money. Our religion is our business. That I totally agree. Why we are not progressing in this religion that is not our culture is because the tools, the thinking, the language, the products, even itself, the products of the religion itself is not economically productive for the African. And so I totally agree with Femi on this, to say why the churches that would have been used to create industries. I think Maponga has said this one time here on the show. Why these churches with this massive followers who are giving, let's say they are putting into a kind of a system like a business into the church, they are paying every day. Why can these churches not use these very masses to create jobs and build industries in the churches? Femi, that's a key factor of economy there.
You have to understand, most of this pastor live on these people's dependency, of lack of. If they give them complete total economical freedom, they have reason to go back to the church to pray for what they did not work for and they want the God to produce for them. That's basically what everybody goes to church for. We pray for what we have not worked for. We're asking for miracles. We're clients. We're looking for results. I'm so sorry if I have to put it in this very simple topic. At the end of it, that's what we all do. If the church is going to change, it's have to be us that have to change it. As it stands right now, we don't have a shot at it, in the sense that once, I think it was Mark Twain that said, when you make a bricklayer your president, you get what you get. In other words, you see, all of us are a part of our own destruction. We input in it. In other words, why am I going to church? Pray for a car I haven't worked for, and people did not produce. It's an unseen expectation. It's a miraculous expectation. It's a bargain and a deal with God unseen. And if then the pastor decides to scam me of my own little pocket, then it's on me. Even Stephen, because I'm trying to scam and he's scamming me. That's the way I look at it.
Like, did you get that? That makes so much sense. Like, you go to a church, you're praying for a miracle to get a car that your country doesn't even produce a car, and you're not even working. You're sitting every day and to just see somebody. So you're waiting to scam. And when you scam, you wonder. Go ahead.
If it was, I'm sorry, Stan, let me just have to put the comment.
Can you hear me now?
It would have been different.
No, I don't think
if we're praying to a tree for a house.
Can you hear Stanley? There's a problem when you can't hear Stanley, because Stanley is pouring out things that you're just saying that we needed to have been, feeding our community and our audience.
Go ahead. Finish. No, tell him to finish his thought.
Go ahead, Femi.
I can't hear. Oh my God. I'm trying to see if I can touch this thing. Maybe something will give. But basically what I'm saying is this. We're praying for what God does not produce. God does not produce a cows. He does not produce a seat. He produced trino that we can now use to convert to make a chair and a house. But we are busy asking the pastor for a non-existent house that God does not produce. And by the time we end up to the pastor, he say, yeah. He said, why don't you times that times 3, but give me 1/10 of what belongs to you so I can have my next jet. And this is where we find ourselves. There are so much information that this continent is deprived of. All the freedom writers are not very present in the continent. You will not find the book of Diop, Ivan Van Santima, and any of these guys on our bookshelf. We're being bombarded with a subtle Christian faith to dosify us, and the other faith are not presenting it from an African perspective. If we are looking at a religion, we must also always look at it from an African perspective. What did our ancestors put in place before us? When was it taken from us? And when was it flipped? And why are we paying for intermediary between a God that we could speak to ourselves? I think that's the challenge the whole of the human race are dealing with. I wonder if Brother Stanley could help us out a little bit more. Yes, I can hear you.
I don't know whether he.
I hear him very well. I mean,
Can you help?
that's why I was here. Of course, I mean, I was just laughing here. Look, there's nothing that you have said. I wish you could hear me. There's nothing that he says that is absolutely, crazy. This is just the truth. All right, this is the truth. Maybe and the reality is that I'm thinking that
Start from mic. He's saying, can you come closer to your mic, Stanley?
I can come closer to my mic.
You bring the mic to you.
Yeah, I'm closer to my mic. Is that good?
Yeah.
Is that good? Okay. So what I was trying to say is that one of the things I find truly remarkable is the fact that you have someone who spends 5 decades or maybe 4 decades, realistically. I've seen people 2 decades, 3 decades, even a decade. A decade is enough time for anybody to change their lives. You can become a medical doctor. You can become a lawyer in a decade. You can become a successful business person. You can also fail in that business, but with wealth of experience within a decade. A decade is absolutely amazing. But imagine somebody sitting in church in 1 decade, trusting that somehow the heavens will open and that somehow, something is going to fall from heaven. And the idea that somebody has to collect money from you to pray for you. And then, so you're sowing so-called seeds that somehow you can be able to receive, a blessing on a different date, a date that will not come. Meanwhile, the person who is receiving a blessing that day is the person you're sowing the seed to. I think that there's something wrong with the psyche of the African, and especially to those of us who have literally embraced this stupidity, in the name of religion. There is a problem within the African consciousness. Let me say this to you. I had the opportunity to spend some time with some Jewish folks, and there's something I learned from the Jews that baffled me. And the idea was this. I discovered that they had these debates among young people before they actually get to the age of 12. And they were literally debating one another, not in English, but in Hebrew. All right. And they were so prolific with volumes of books. And the idea I don't speak Hebrew, so I understood nothing, but I was watching the debate. And then at the ending of the debate, somebody won. When the person won the debate, the guy who took me was asking me, do you know what just happened? I said, no. The guy won the debate. He said, no. And the question was, do you know why he won the debate? The idea was he won the debate not because he answered a question. He won the debate because he raised a question that nobody could answer, not even himself. Do you know what I'm saying? And so the mindset to the African, well, you are basically shown and literally asked to shut up, asked to sit down, asked to be quiet, because you raise questions that challenges the authority, that challenges orthodoxy, that challenges people in authority, is absolutely benign. It's a cancer in the consciousness of the African that needs to be eradicated. It is absolutely diabolic in nature. It is the sense of wonder that gives us the capacity to be what we are. The day you lose your sense of wonder, you lose your humanity. The day you lose your sense of wonder, you can as well declare yourself dead. And so we have people who are dead now, walking around and talking, and the only reason why they're still talking is because they have breath in them, but their brains and their minds are officially dead. Why? They have lost their sense of wonder. It is that unique ability that causes you to be able to think and then to ask questions that is relevant to yourself and your progress. It is questions that were asked that brought us to where we are technologically. We have to be able to raise questions and not just have the prolific nature in answering them. When you answer a question, you bring an end to a conversation. But when you raise a question, you push the conversation forward. It is questions that have folks in the laboratory right now working and trying to find out what we have to do next. It is questions that folks have raised, questions that have come as a result of our society, that have folks doing research to find out what the truth is. But once you shun folks from raising questions because they challenge the platforms for which it is that you have built your structure, okay, of imperialism, where you have built those structures where you sit over there and then have subjects around you who call you Papa and worship you, then you've lost your mind. And frankly speaking, that's not African, and that's not who we are.
There's a question that I posted from Kofi. Kofi was like, is it God that is creating? Oh my God, I think I wanted to bring Femi to the stage. Kofi just posted a question that I shared, and like, is it God that is creating the system in Ghana? Let me just ask in another form, like, is it God that is creating the system on the continent? That is why we begin to understand that God is man that can create. So if we create these structures and we see 60% or 30% of Ghanaians are in the church praying for the government of a president, that it's politics that needs and the institutions and the laws to whip him out of office, and you go to church every day and pray and ask God to remove him. That's why I truly agree with that. Like, is it God that keeps or human beings that are making the systems work? And the way you are saying, if we don't ask, if they don't do research, if they don't produce, if the same people that we go and we say, no, it is for them, if they don't go to work and they are not working to create and to research and to ask questions, but what is the Bible or the God system that is asking that don't question God?
Can I say something before Femi comes on? You
come on.
Yeah, if you look at a place like Nigeria, and just I use Nigeria for example because I think I have the literature on that. I've read the literature on that. Nigeria, of all the produce in relationship to fruits that she produces annually, she only uses about 15% of it. That means all of her produce in relationship to fruits every single year basically goes back to the ancestors. They get rotten on the ground. Right. But what is a kicker is that Nigeria imports to the tune, I think it's 900 million on fruit juice concentrate alone. All right. And then this is to produce, fruit juice and all those fruit juice from concentrate and whatnot. But yet Nigeria has the capacity to not import 900 million worth, if only they had the machinery within the systems to be able to harness what they already produce, all right, and then take that and produce into concentrate and then resell that, when they need to, and maybe export that out of the country. No prayer, no amount of prayer, I don't care exactly how long you pray and how intense you pray, can be able to produce a machine that will convert fruits to fruit juice concentrate. You need those machinery. You need the factories, you need the technical know-how to be able to do so. It doesn't matter whether you're religious or unreligious. And I think that if based upon religion, if religion was a factor in terms of economic benefits, then people like China, countries like China, countries like Japan will absolutely not be on the retro scale in relationship to their impact in global economy. Right? They will not be. But the reason why they are is because they understand the value of technology, they understand the value of hard work, they understand exactly strategic planning, what it means to do what and how to do it. Right? So if there be any other arena in which the church has literally failed, is that we are producing a generation of dummies. We are producing a generation of dummies, men with no brains, men without heads, men who has abandoned their minds at the altar of some men who told them that everything was going to be all right. No, everything will not be all right. And whether you like it or not, your bank account right now is telling you everything is not all right. If you look at yourself and you look at the other people who did not bury themselves like you in churches, the truth of the matter is that they are a whole lot more better than you, and that's the truth. So unfortunately, we live in a society which I think that and especially maybe the issue of Ghana, it applies also to Ghana. Whatever is happening in Ghana on the political front has nothing to do with anything. Bottom line is, if you have a leader who is doing what they're supposed to do, and if there's an opposition, I don't know exactly whether you're supposed to be out there basically, trying to gather votes, or raise up the populace to go to overthrow a president, or, through an election, or whatever stuff that you want to do. But the idea that somehow the church has the basis for it, I think is crazy. There's nothing like that, and I think that is a total waste of time to believe that there's anything that functions within that framework.
Wonderful. Thank you. We're rounding up this conversation in the next 15 minutes. I'm giving the last question or the last reflection back to Femi. Stanley just said something in terms of...
I couldn't properly hear you still, but the thing I would like to say just in some of this responding closely is that the concept of God came from the Africans, who are the first group of people to say there's something beyond us that is in charge of our human existence. That came from us. And everything after that is man-created, all of it. All religions are belief systems. They're not facts behind them. They're belief systems. That means you cannot add 2 plus 2 if you're going to do the issue of religion. The African God system before the European is that it's a God we call the God under the tree. In other words, it's everywhere. It's in your bathroom, it's in your kitchen, anywhere you are, here is the God. And for us to be put into the limited state there we are in, the best way I can describe the African current spiritual system, we are a whale swimming in a fish bowl. We can breathe. Our spiritual expansion is bigger than what we're dealing with. And I think Africa needs to revisit that and go back to our universal belief systems.
Thank you. What I was about to talk to give you a point on that before we close was the productivity that Stanley was talking about. Productivity. If the young people would be the majority that would be in church 3 times in a week, their prayers, they're in the choir, they are doing I don't know, Sunday school teaching, and then on Sunday there would be, you look at the percentage of the working hours of the average person in a week, and you convert it into that. That's what Stanley was saying. This system of religion in this church kind of a format has made the African dormant and doesn't think, and the young people just sitting and waiting for a miracle instead of working hard like every other. The European system that even brought that religion is not doing that. They're working 40 hours a week to be able to live or to survive. And so why is this kind of dogma or this kind of religion just like putting Africans to sleep and hope for something, particularly the young people? The productivity aspect, it doesn't tie.
The issue there is that the African modern day, most of them are businessmen and women now. And
Okay,
they are now eating out of the
systems
hope
of business.
and desperation of others who are in desperate need. I cannot pay my school fees of my child. Pastor, pray for me. The pastor take the 10% and 10% pay he or her own school fees, where on Monday morning, the member of the congregation cannot be the deadline. It is us as a general society that is accepting this. The amount of time we're taking away from these children in production time is criminal. And we're actually patternly conditioning them to go, you say 3 times a week. No, it's 4 times a day in Nigeria. We have to go to this morning prayer at 5 a.m. in the morning. We have to beat the devil out. And then how could it be our God if he's a God of fear? He's a God that is going to punish you.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still your father. Are you with me on that? I allow any others to worship what they worship. I'm just speaking for the son of Acre that those are things that they don't match. If you are my loving father, then you will give me the instinct to do the right thing. And then the devil will not have no power over me. They have to pray out. We have to return to a structure, governance of some kind that will take away the advantage that these pastors, quote unquote, called pastors, and other, not just pastors, by the way, so we don't just stay on Christianity. All our spiritual practices have these issues, from the African belief system who are doing rituals using human being, to the imam who is using the same human being to do sacrifice. All of us are guilty. And if we're going to fix it, we have to go back to our structure to ask ourselves, who are we before the European came? And how do we get this corrupt this quick? And how do we turn this big boat back and turn it around? That's the question that none of us is able to answer. I think my biggest disappointment in the continent is how the churches are accepting thieves and rogues into the congregation and give them high seat, as long as they can have some money. There could be a politician who stole all the highway money that's killing people. It could be a politician that took all the money for the hospital. As long as you have a black truck and a white Mercedes and the drum will change and they will give them the front seat. That's my biggest concern, that Jesus said, my house, my father's house has become the den of thieves. That's why he went to fight them. But the modern day churches are giving them front seat. That's my biggest concern, and how we're conditioning the next generation to submit their brain at the door and left their pocket on the table for the pastor to take what he needs out of it. And what is left for him or her is what the family is going to share. I think that has to stop. And I think Professor P.L.O. Lumumba has said, the quickest way to get rich now in Africa is start a church, if you don't want to work for the money. And I think that should stop. Africa take our religious and spiritual system very seriously, and this is why we're able to get played.
How has religion helped Black people? That's a question, Stanley.
That's a zillion. If we understood the fact that we, as a group of people completely globally, suffer from two major derailment. One is the fragmented identity and scattered consciousness. In other words, if we could find a religion that could put all our mind in the same place at the same time, would I be a winner by now already? The question, and the $1 million question, is how can we get us, in spite of all our religious belief system, to say African first in all our belief system? Then we might be getting somewhere.
How has religion helped Africa, Stanley?
Well, it can help us by behaving properly.
Wait, Femi. I'm asking if Stanley. You just
Oh, okay,
responded
you
to
said
that.
Femi.
I'm
That's what I
sorry.
was going to now give you a pointers. But go ahead, Stan.
No, well, I think that if you're going to ask me how religion has helped us, um, I really would say that I can't tell you because I don't know how it has helped us. I don't think that there is not. I don't think religion has done anything to the African. I think that religion has actually made us worst. First of all, the worst atrocity on the African continent was the transatlantic slave trade that took 11 million Africans out of West Africa into the Americas, and that literally depleted Africa of all her human capital, and Africa was left barren in terms of intellectually, in terms of her human capital and the capacity to build and construct. If you look at the West and those who built the West, you will understand exactly why Africa is the way it is. Black men built America. Secondly, one of the worst other atrocities that still is going on today is black men and women who were shipped from sub-Saharan Africa through the Sahara Desert in the trans-Sahara slave trade into the Medinas, where black men were emasculated. They cut up and chopped off their private parts so that they would not be able to reproduce in when they took them to Saudi Arabia. And all of this was close to about 24-25 million, just the trans-Sahara slave trade alone. So if you're trying to ask me how religion has helped Africa, I wonder, especially today, that we still have black men being sold in northern African Arab countries in North Africa by Muslims. And so the whole entire talk about what's going on in the Middle East, I have a question to every Muslim in the world. How come we hear nothing about the atrocities on black Africans in North Africa? That is shameful. It's disgraceful. And I think that if there be anything else that is left to be said, is the fact that we have watched this for more than 8 centuries. All right. It took 7 centuries, from the 7th century all the way to the 14th century. When black Africans, when the trans-Sahara slave trade was active, but from the 14th century till date, okay, we have literally not been able to experience anything else. And I think that is where we are experiencing a lot of problems. Maybe we can be able to fix that stuff, but for how long, I do not know. So if you're asking me how he has helped us, I don't think he has helped us in any way. Talked about the schools. It basically messed up our educational system. They sent to us missionaries who taught us absolutely nothing, but they taught us to become slaves in our own hometown and to get educational system where we came out to depend on their own systems, which they placed on the continent. Educationally, we are messed up. Talk about the hospitals that we created and built. That is our resources. It's our diamond. It's our gold. So if you're looking at it, they gave us bags of peanuts where they collected truckloads of diamond, gold, copper, and every single thing is that built Europe. So nobody should be talking to me about how religion has helped us. Frankly speaking, whether it be Islam or it be Christianity, the African was never helped.
Thank you very much. And you heard that, Femi. Did you hear now?
I hear now. Now I hear the last part of it. Yes.
Anyway, guys, it's a pleasure having you. And I think we'll have to continue with this conversation because this is a series that we are starting to begin to reflect. As we say, we're teaching each other. If you're a Christian, please, this has nothing to do with your faith and your religion or what you believe in. Well, I think the basic concept and what Femi has been saying here, or Stanley, is it's a belief system. So if you believe and it works for you, that is good. But globally, as a collective, and as we're changing the narratives, religion is still to really prove its existence on the continent and the fruit of it. If we look at it, seen even in China how little children, they begin to practice yoga, or in India. And Africans, we as African spirituality in terms of meditation, everything has been enveloped. Everything has been. And if you look at the way our parents, our mothers, even those that didn't go to school, that could not read even the scriptures to understand, the people that were were actually literally explaining, the pastors in those days, who didn't even understood or understand actually what the Bible was talking to them at that time. recently coming back, when I had an encounter with my mom, and each time when she's praying, she's always like, Papa God, Papa God. I said, then I asked her, I said, Mother, where is the Mama God in it? Where's the mother? And so this is also a book where we see, yes, Jacob or Abraham with his 12 sons, and I begin to say, where's the female? So this Abraham and his 12 tribes and 12 sons never had a woman. So it's everything that Africans are really coming up now, and these questions are arising because we have realized that a system that have put people to just believe in something without hard work has brought nothing. Femi.
Yes.
You have one or two minutes, and we're rounding up because we have 56, and in 4 minutes
we can't. I like to just simply say, regardless of where you find the Africans globally today in our spiritual belief system, is where we still belong, in the sense that under the duress of slavery, under the oppression of others who are forced into these systems, and if we refuse it, we will die then. They were able to manage to put some of their own culture indebted into some of this belief system. If you look at places like Trinidad and Tobago, when they have Juve and Carnival, people don't know that's the Yoruba religion system. So I'm saying that we survived. Now we have to try again. African spirit is what have to lead us. And it have led us before, and we should not leave behind millions of years of our ancestors' know-how about the cosmos. I've stopped there. Till then, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. That's a good wrap up to say, I mean, how many thousands of years ago, what our ancestors did to be able to sustain, that can sustain us. We've tried another circle of years. If it didn't work, we have to go back to the other circle to try. So your last word, Stanley?
Well, for me, it's that we need to first of all understand that every text, however sacred that text is given to a people, and the people have to write the text within the confines of the society in which they're living in. So the text is enshrined in the culture, it's enshrined in the psyche of the people. So whatever we read, we are reading the daily lives, the activities, and everything else of the people who received the text and to how they wrote it. The African is not represented fairly so far as the text that we now so much carry is concerned. It is not us, it's not our food, it's not our traditions, it's not our values, it's extremely quite different. So to dismiss us in reference to who we are as a people, to say that we have to literally embrace something that is given to us without first of all trying to figure out how that fits within the context of our own society is absolutely crazy. And I think that we need to be able to embrace who we are, embrace what we have, and then try to figure out how we can be able to have conversations and dialogue that simply put each and every one of us in our own different belief structures on the continent, whether you're of the Yoruba, you're of the Igbo, so you're from Cameroon, you're Uganda, whatever stuff you're coming from. Let's spend this mosaic, let's spend this beautiful picture in our own cultures and values, and then maybe somehow we can actually have the picture of the African that we've been looking for. And that picture is a picture that is enshrined in many traditions and values, and all those values can seamlessly come together and create a beautiful mosaic, a beautiful tapestry, a beautiful picture. I think that that's who we are as Africans.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's been a wonderful and constructive conversation here, I think, and this is something that we have to set the base for this conversation on how do we go forward, with our different diversities in religious beliefs. How do we go ahead collectively as a people? So those that are marginalized in this sector, that they say we cannot rise up if we don't go to who we are, to define our own belief systems and traditions, what we worship that represents us, as a matter of fact. And on the contrary, those that say, no, I feel comfortable, I've been already in this system and it works for me, it's okay. We want a united Africa. We want one Africa. And for us on the Pan-African Daily TV, we're talking about African spirituality. We're talking about going back to the way of our ancestors the way we were created in our different forms and shape. So I want to thank you so very much on this very important topic. We'll be having the same conversation next Monday, same guest speakers to continue on this subject matter, because it's a teaching, it's a process, and a lot I'm bringing only topics that we've asked the community and people want to hear us teach on these topics. It's not like we just pick things. So it's about African spirituality. It's about our culture, our economics, our politics, right? In the one united Africa that we want. So thank you so very much, guys. And good night to all of you. We see us again next Monday on the same topic with Stanley and Femi. Good night. Good. And to you, my dearest family here, I want to thank you so much for your support. It's a hard topic for us unite in our different components and what we believe, what we live in. Our motto on the Pan-African Daily is One Africa for Africans worldwide, and a common system that works for Africans. We're trying to empower our young people. What is the direction they should take? All these confusions. We're raising up our children, the next generation. What is it that we should start teaching them right now from our kindergartens and everything? So it's left upon us to define what system actually do we want for Africa. It's not just building Africa. It's not just developing Africa. It's not just talking about one Africa. Now we know that we want that, but what is the system that we want that is unique? We look at Europe, they have a system, a structure that you can say. They have a common language, they have a currency, they have a passport, they have their culture in how they believe, their dance, their music, their clothing, their jeans, their everything that we consume. That's a Eurocentric system. We look at Chinese, they have a unique system. They have their worship system, their Kung Fu, that's a major hierarchical system. They have their traditionals, they have their food, right? They have their language. That's a system. We look at Russians, it's the same thing. We look at Indians, they have a culture, they have a Buddha, they have a language, they have a cloth that when you see them, they tie their turbans, you know, okay, these are Indian people. You just see them, you know. Us Africans, we have a colored first, diverse, and with diverse languages, diverse beliefs, diverse clothing, diverse food, diverse everything. It's time for us to set a culture that when one Africa is seen everywhere, apart from just us looking melanated and diverse in our colors, they know this is African. So I want to thank all of you for being a part of this conversation. Same time, Monday, we're going to continue all the topics that we talk about with the different speakers and teachers. We continue in the same topic on a different level, and together we build the Africa that we want. So who is coming live tomorrow? Tomorrow we have Professor Jume who is coming, and this is going to be something on more of a political topic tomorrow. And he'll be talking to us about their federal movement, and he's been on the continent and giving lectures, and we want to get a feedback on what actually has changed from the time he was and now, because we're in the round of collectively redefining how we get into 2024 to be able to proceed to what actually we want. So please join me tomorrow with Professor Jume. He was already here, the brother from Senegal, and the professor who is based there in America for years. And they started this federal movement together with Sons of Africa, which we do know so well. So please, we are going to see us same time tomorrow. Thank you so very much for being here and joining the conversation. One thing I have to correct, the times have changed. I keep saying 2 p.m. Eastern, but now I realize it's 3 p.m. Eastern to fit with our times here. We are streaming on Central European times, 8 p.m. So normally it used to be 2 p.m. Eastern, and I keep making that mistake. So normally it's 3 p.m. Eastern. But join us anytime. We are here every day. We're back to work. So thank you. Good night. Blessings, peace to your families, to your loved ones, and we see us tomorrow. You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. So one more thing, I think, oh, no. I think I got it. Okay. So good night, guys. Good night, family.